Have you ever taken a bite of fresh pineapple and noticed that something feels a little off a few moments later? At first, it tastes amazing, cold, juicy, sweet, refreshing, almost like the perfect fruit. But then your tongue starts tingling. Maybe the roof of your mouth feels rough. Maybe the sides of your cheeks begin to sting just a little. And suddenly the fruit that tasted so harmless a minute ago starts to feel like it's attacking you. Most people assume that this happens because pineapple is highly acidic, and while that does play a small role, it's not the real reason. The truth is much stranger, and honestly, a little unsettling. Pineapple doesn't just sit there waiting to be eaten. In a very small but very real way, when you eat fresh pineapple, the pineapple fights back. The reason all of this happens comes down to a natural compound hidden inside the fruit called bromelain. Bromelain is an enzyme, and while that word can sound technical, the basic idea is actually simple. Enzymes are tiny biological tools that help chemical reactions happen faster, and bromelain has a very specific talent. It breaks down proteins. That's important because your mouth is made of soft living tissue, and those tissues are built largely from proteins. Your tongue, your gums, the insides of your cheeks, and even the thin protective layer that lines your mouth all depend on proteins to stay intact and comfortable. So when you bite into raw pineapple, you're not just releasing sweetness and juice. You're also releasing a protein-dissolving substance directly onto one of the most sensitive parts of your body. As you chew, the fruit cells rupture and bromelain spreads across your mouth with the juice. Once it comes into contact with your tongue and the lining of your cheeks, it begins to do exactly what it is designed to do: start breaking proteins apart. It doesn't rip through your flesh in some dramatic movie-style way, but it does begin wearing down the delicate surface layer that normally protects your mouth from irritation. That rough, prickly, burning, or almost scraped sensation people feel after eating pineapple is your body reacting to that microscopic damage. In other words, that weird feeling isn't just in your head, and it isn't simply because the fruit is sour. Your mouth is reacting because the pineapple has started digesting the outermost layer of the tissues touching it. It's not enough to seriously injure you, but it is enough for your nerves to notice. And once you realize what's actually happening, pineapple becomes a lot less innocent than it looks. What makes this even more fascinating is that people understood pineapple's strange softening power long before modern science ever explained it. Long before chemists isolated bromelain and gave it a name, people living in regions where pineapple naturally grew had already noticed that it had an unusual effect on flesh. They may not have used scientific language, but they absolutely understood the results. Pineapple juice and even parts of the plant were known to soften tough meat. And this wasn't folklore or kitchen superstition. It was chemistry in action. The same enzyme that makes your mouth feel raw is also capable of breaking down muscle fibers in food. That's why pineapple has been used for generations as a natural meat tenderizer. It works because bromelain doesn't care whether the protein comes from a steak or from the soft surface of your tongue. If it encounters protein, it starts doing its job. And this wasn't only obvious in kitchens. In the era when pineapple processing was done largely by hand, people who worked with fresh fruit for long periods experienced just how active this enzyme could be. Workers in pineapple processing environments often handled cut fruit, juice, and plant material for hours at a time, day after day. With repeated exposure, their skin could become irritated, softened, or worn down. In some cases, the ridges of their fingertips became less distinct for a while, almost as if the fruit had begun sanding away the surface of the skin. It wasn't permanent, and the body naturally repaired itself, but it was a striking reminder that bromelain is not just a fun trivia fact. It is a real biological substance with enough power to physically affect human tissue under the right conditions. That tiny sting you feel on your tongue is actually a mild version of something much more tangible. So if pineapple can partially digest the surface of your mouth, why doesn't it do more serious damage? The answer is that the human body is far more resilient than a piece of fruit. The tissues inside your mouth heal incredibly quickly. The cells that line your tongue and cheeks are constantly being replaced, which is why the irritation usually fades within a short time. Even if the bromelain does start breaking down the outer layer of those tissues, your body is already prepared to repair and replace them. And once the pineapple is swallowed, the fruit loses its advantage. In your stomach, it enters an environment filled with powerful acid and digestive enzymes, far stronger than anything it brought with it. Bromelain doesn't continue marching through your body like some unstoppable biological weapon. It gets broken down and neutralized like everything else you eat. So while pineapple may briefly get the upper hand inside your mouth, it definitely does not win the war. Still, that doesn't make the experience any more pleasant if you're someone who loves pineapple but hates the sting. Fortunately, there are simple ways to enjoy it without turning snack time into a chemistry experiment. One of the easiest solutions is heat. Bromelain is sensitive to high temperatures, which means cooking pineapple can dramatically reduce or completely destroy the enzyme's activity. That's why grilled pineapple, baked pineapple, and especially canned pineapple usually don't cause the same mouth irritation as fresh raw slices. Canned pineapple is heat processed during production, so by the time it reaches you, most of the bromelain has already been deactivated. The fruit still tastes sweet and tropical, but the microscopic attack has mostly been disarmed. Another method that many people swear by is soaking pineapple in lightly salted water before eating it. This doesn't magically remove the enzyme, but it can help reduce its effectiveness. Salt can slightly interfere with the structure and behavior of certain proteins and enzymes, which may make bromelain less aggressive by the time it reaches your mouth. In different parts of Asia, variations of this trick have been used for years, not because people needed a lab report to prove it, but because they learned through experience that it made the fruit easier to eat. It's one of those moments where traditional food wisdom quietly lines up with modern science. What makes pineapple so memorable is that it sits in this strange category of foods that are both delicious and biologically active. Most fruits feel passive. You bite them, chew them, swallow them, and that's the end of the story. Pineapple is different. Pineapple leaves evidence. It makes itself known. It creates a physical reaction strong enough that people all over the world notice it, talk about it, and remember it. That's part of why the fruit has such a strange reputation. It's sweet enough to belong in desserts, refreshing enough to feel harmless, and yet somehow powerful enough to make your own tongue feel like it just lost a tiny fight. And maybe that's what makes it so interesting. Pineapple isn't evil, and it isn't trying to hunt you down. It's simply a plant with its own chemistry, built for its own biological purposes, and humans just happen to experience the side effects when we decide to slice it up and eat it fresh. The burning, the tingling, the roughness, all of that is just the result of a natural defense mechanism colliding with the soft tissues of the human mouth. It's a small reminder that even the foods we think of as simple can carry hidden science inside them. So the next time you bite into a piece of pineapple and your tongue starts to complain, you'll know exactly what's happening. You're not imagining it. You're not weak. And the fruit isn't too sour. You're just experiencing one of the weirdest little battles in everyday food. The moment a tropical fruit briefly tries to digest you before you finish eating it.